this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the evolution of the portable music player. To start off, I'm going to talk about the 80s, where Sony actually made a portable cassette player. So Sony made the Sony Walkman TPS L2 in 1979, but really took off thanks to the portability of playing cassettes. Cassettes was the main form of audio media by that time, and a lot of people did find some conveniences with a cassette player and also a portable cassette player. So I bought the Sony Walkman AF54, the sports version, and I just used it for about a month now, and I'm going to talk to you guys about my experience with the Sony Walkman. All right, so before the portable cassette player, people were using vinyl records to listen to their music. That wasn't very portable. Obviously, there were attempts to make portable music in the 70s and 60s, but it really took off in the 80s with the Sony Walkman. And the reason why it got so popular was because of the convenience. Not only was it portable, but you were able to access multiple albums because a cassette is very, very small. You can fit multiple of them in your pocket. So the fact that it was very portable and the fact that you can bring more than one album with you and switch between them whenever you like was one of the main selling points with a portable cassette player. Obviously, cassettes had other advantages, like being able to record audio and put it on a tape was one of the main features, especially in the 80s, where a lot of hip-hop parties used to happen, but you can only experience them when you're there. But with DJs playing their music and being able to record and put it on a tape and then bring it with you on a portable Walkman or a portable cassette player changed the game. Just made the whole listening experience very easy and convenient. So the 80s brought a lot of change in the music industry, and it really brought a lot of those changes thanks to the tech being more accessible. So being able to create your own mixtapes, being able to record audio with tapes and put it all in your pocket and switching between albums very easily made it that the cassette player was a phenomenon in the 80s. And Sony really took advantage of that because the Sony Walkman is a very, very good music player. Not only does it play cassettes, but the version that I have plays radio. And that expands the horizon or expands your music library. The fact that you have radio on a cassette player makes it even better because you can actually listen to songs that you don't have. Although the cassette player made a lot of the music listening experience very convenient, obviously right now we're in 2024, about to go into 2025, so there's a lot of cons that I realized that were probably not realized back then, but after my experience, there is a lot of cons with this. First is that when you want to change music, you have to do a whole maneuver. You have to open the whole player, take out the CD, and put a new album in. But that's if you want to switch albums. If you want to finish a whole album, you're going to have to switch sides, just like a vinyl will have to do. So it's not as convenient to listen from point A to point B. Not only that, the cassettes are not as durable. So I got a cassette, I got the Sade album, and it broke on me after a few weeks. Buying cassettes will require you to actually take care of them a little bit more because they're not as durable. Oh, my bad. You were watching the video. My apologies. I'll let you finish. Just don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you actually liked the video. But yeah, my bad. Sorry. Let you finish. All right, so the Walkman was able to work with convenience and also make everything portable and easier to use. But as I mentioned before, there were cons. And the next con that shouldn't have been a con is the music quality. So the cassette music quality was not as good or better than the previous version, which was the vinyl. And it actually made it worse. But people didn't really care because of the convenience, because the tech behind it made it so convenient that they could listen to music more and better. So the quality was not the priority. And you can hear that the quality of a cassette is actually very much worse than the other forms of media that I've used. When you listen to the cassette, you do hear some tape hiss throughout the whole listening experience, but not only that, the audio is just not as clear. So you don't really get the best audio experience. That's about it when it comes to the cassette player and the cassette. The 80s was a very big step when it comes to portable music, and the tech really made it really convenient, but there were some cons. And the 90s tried to fix those cons with the CD player. So let's talk about the 90s and the portable CD player. So let's go. All right, so now we're talking to the 90s. So in the 90s, the CD player or the portable CD player was really popular. But it did start out in the 80s. It took about a decade for the portable CD player to really take off. The reason for that is because the technology of the CD was seen as something very, very futuristic. And when something's futuristic, it can scare a lot of people away. So a lot of people were hesitant to move from cassettes to CD. But once they figured out that there's a lot of advantages with the CD, a lot of people did shift. And the 90s and even early 2000s, that was the case. But yeah, let's talk about the convenience of a CD player in the 90s. And from there, we'll talk about the cons. All right, so let's talk about convenience. So the CD player in the 90s was a revolutionary thing. Again, like I mentioned, the CD player was looked at like a futuristic technology. All your music lasered into a disc made it very scary for a lot of people. But it was very convenient because with the cassette player, you couldn't really control your music that much. You could just play the music. But with the CD drive or portable CD player, you can really control your music a lot more. For example, I can skip between songs and go back to songs directly without having to rewind the whole tape. So if someone likes a specific song and it's song 12 on an album, they can skip directly to that very fast. And the controls are right on top here, so it's very easy to control the music that you want. This specific CD player, the JVC that I got, is actually more shock absorbent. It actually has an anti-shock mode, which allows you to use your CD player a little bit more ruggedly. You don't have to worry about dropping it in some surfaces without getting it broken. As you guys saw, my cassette was very, very easy to break, and it wasn't really the best for rugged use. The CD is not necessarily the best for rugged use because it is easy to break, but if you drop your CD, it won't break. Obviously, you do have to worry about scratches, but that's about it. So yeah, the fact that the CD player brought a lot of these conveniences or improvements from the cassette, but improved upon it, those things made it a very easy sell. But with the increased innovation in technology, the CD player had more capabilities. So you can put your CD into a computer and burn your CD or rip your CD. So for example, if you had music that you bought digitally, you can put it onto your CD, a plain CD. But if you had an album in a CD form, you can put it into your computer and rip it out from the CD and put it onto your computer. All right, so yeah, we talked enough about the conveniences with the portable CD player and the CD in the 90s. But what were the cons? And obviously, one easy con was the fact that it's not as pocketable as you might think. It doesn't fit in your pocket very easily. So yeah, it is portable, but not pocketable. The other con regarding the CD player is something that was seen in the previous player. So you can't really put more than one album. Yes, you can make mixtapes, so mix songs into one CD and burn them into a CD. But if you want multiple albums with different purchases from different albums, you can't have more than one at a time. So that makes it very inconvenient. So those are the two cons that I've realized with using the CD player. It's great because it still holds some of the new tech, which is burning and ripping CDs, but it kind of outdated when it comes to being able to listen to a wider library. So yeah, those were my cons when I was using the CD player. But last, but certainly not least, is the quality. So as I mentioned before, the cassette player was an improvement in accessibility, portability, and technology, but it was at the cost of music quality. But it looks like the CD player didn't really have to eat those costs. The CD player was actually able to listen to music with all these different conveniences, but with higher audio quality. So the audio quality wasn't sacrificed, was even actually improved on with the new generation. So the 90s generation and the CD player was the best generation when it comes to being able to have portable music with the highest form of audio quality. So the audio quality on a CD is top notch. Even till this day, I would say is one of the best. So you really can't go wrong if you're going with a CD player. Plus, it's just cool to collect it. So yeah, I would say that the quality makes this generation probably one of the best portable music generations because of the fact that you have a lot of conveniences with this, but it certainly doesn't sacrifice on quality. So yeah, that's about it for the 90s and the CD player. Now we're on to the 2000s and the iPod. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so for the early 2000s or the 2000s in general, the iPod was the main form of audio consumption back in the day. And this is the generation where I actually partake in. So I had an iPod as a kid. Well, I had a lot of different music players. Back then, we would call every type of music player an MP3 player, even though it played more than just MP3s. But MP3 players back in the day was very, very phenomenal because it was a small music player that could hold thousands of songs. So it just made it so much more convenient. And with the added convenience of a CD player where you can have songs from your CD, ripped from your CD to your music player, there was no reason not to use a music player, even if you had a huge CD collection. So yeah, the iPod was the main one, I would say. It was the more popular one, and it was the one that had a lot of technology behind it. The convenience of an iPod came with iTunes. So the popularity of iTunes allowed for the iPod to really strive. Being able to just buy music on your computer, download it from your computer to your music player was so convenient. You didn't even have to leave your house. That was the start of buying music without leaving your house and going to a store. And that really changed the game till this day. Being able to have multiple songs directly just made it so easy to use and made the music more accessible. So the iPod not only made buying music more accessible, but the use case or usage of the iPod was even more accessible. You didn't need to buy AAA or AA batteries to put in your iPod. You just charge it up. So use it for a week, charge it up a few 2-3 hours, and you get to use it for another week. Why would you want to go to a CD player and you have to go buy batteries and then go to a store to buy CDs and only listen to one album at a time and you have this here? So it really made the CD player obsolete. The convenience of buying music was really the key factor of the next generation of music players. The 2000s just made buying music so easy that people didn't want to go buy physical because the task was just a little bit harder. The MP3 player had a lot of different advantages, or the iPod specifically had different advantages. You had a screen that you can use to actually see the cover art of your music. You can see the track list of your music. You can shuffle songs. You can switch between songs. There's also some games that you can play. There's little games, they're not really crazy games, but there's other entertainment factors when it comes with the music player in the 2000s. So listening to music wasn't enough. And with this generation of iPod, I was able to watch videos with this. So you can buy movies, you can download videos and watch it on your music player. All right, so the main cons with the iPod or the music players in the 2000s was the fact that music was too accessible. So it didn't really diminish the quality, and I will talk about the quality later. But the thing is that with the new form of purchasing music, it made it very easy to pirate the music. There was websites like Napster and LimeWire. Me personally, as a kid, I was using LimeWire, but yeah, it was very accessible. Me as a 5-6-year-old was able to download music very easily. And that really caused problems in the whole music industry. But the quality was diminished in a certain way. So the added accessibility is a factor in the fact that a lot of people would just get their songs in the MP3 format. The MP3 format is not the best quality audio. So yeah, the fact that it's more accessible, the easier way or the easier format to get was MP3. So it made it very popular. You had to put in more work to get better quality. It didn't necessarily diminish the quality. It just made the lower quality more accessible, which was the dominant form at the time. Hence why we call music players MP3 players. So the success of the iPod really shaped the next generation. So the 10s or the 2010s generation with the iPod Touch. We'll get into that, and I'll tell you why that the 2010 generation was really the downfall of music players. So yeah, let's get into 2010. All right, so in the 2010s, the iPod Touch really took over the game. Before 2010, you did have the original iPod Touch, but it really changed the game in the 2010s. The problem with the iPod Touch is that it had a competitor that wasn't another music player. It was a phone. So the iPod Touch had to compete with the phone. And the phone was very convenient. You had everything that you really need in one device. And we still use our phones as our main device till this day. But the iPod had to compete with that. So it had movies, it had games, had AAA games, had games specifically for the iPod Touch. So the entertainment factor of a music player wasn't just about the music. It was about everything else. And everything else that you can get, you would have on a music player. So the iPod Touch had to really revolutionize the way that they advertise. I remember being a kid and seeing on TV the different games that you can buy on an iPod Touch. They barely talked about the music on the TV. So the entertainment factor of music players were the main factor in this case. Music was a secondary thing. Yes, you can listen to music if you have nothing else to do, but you can play games on the App Store. You can watch movies. You can go on social media. Everything that your phone can do, you can do with this music player. So yeah, the iPod Touch really didn't care much about the music. They barely actually spoke about the music. And if you actually look at every generation of music players, the iPod Touch was the only one that really didn't bring much into the innovation of how you consume music. It was mostly the phone. So with the growing number of illegal websites, the big tech companies had to change something with the illegal websites. So they came up with streaming. And streaming is just another more convenient way to get access to unlimited number of music. But here's the thing, is that streaming doesn't really grab you as the other forms of media did. For example, with the cassette player, you buy a cassette, you're gonna live with that album until you buy another one. Same thing with the CD player. You buy one CD, you put it in, and you're gonna live with that album until you're tired of it or until you have a new one. The iPod allowed you to have a lot of different albums on your phone, but it still required you to buy those songs and own them. Buying your own music wasn't really the best way if you're going to compete with illegal websites. The easier way to do it is with streaming. So with Apple Music and with Spotify, you don't really own the songs, but you have access to so many songs. But the reason why this kind of ruined the music player industry is because people don't really care about owning their songs. People can listen to an album, after the first week, they're done, they move on to something else. Before, that was hard to do. You had the songs that you had and you had to live with those for a long, long time, which kind of removed the actual value of music. Granted, the 2010s did bring new technology. Obviously, you have touchscreens, you have internet access, you have Bluetooth capabilities, which made the listening experience even better. But again, it kind of diminished the importance of music. People don't really cherish music like they did before, and that's really due to the technological advances. So let me know what you think. What was the best generation of music? Was it a cassette, the CD player, the iPod, or the Touch? The 2010s, in my opinion, is the fall off of music or music players, but the 2000s, I feel like was the perfect sweet spot. You get to own your music, have all this new technological advances that allows you to have the right amount of convenience, but still cherish and understand the value of music. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments what you think, and see you guys on another video. Peace.